How's it going, everyone? I'm here today to bring you an overview video of the Rosewill Viper Z computer case. Now, I recently built myself a brand new computer and I obviously used this case. When I was looking online trying to pick out what case I wanted, I saw this one and there just wasn't that much information about it. I mean, I had all the normal stuff that you would get when you're going to buy it, but I wanted a little more information. I had some questions about some of the internal, stuff that comes with it and whatnot. And so now that I have one and I've had time to build my computer and use this case and see what its features are and whatnot, I'm going to share what I have learned with you guys. So if you're looking at buying this case and you have some of the same questions I did, you'll have some answers. So let's dive in, shall we? Now, to start off this overview, I want to take a look at the front of the case. As you can see here, we have a nice black metal wire mesh here on the front, which provides excellent airflow for the two 120 millimeter blue LED fans which come pre-installed. There is also three 5¼ inch drive bays. As you can see here, I've got my LED controller here and my DVD drive. Now, if you have a device like a card reader or something that needs a 3½ inch drive bay as opposed to the 5¼ inch bay, don't worry, Rosewill's got you covered. This case comes with a plate that fits right into the 5¼ inch bay that's got a 3½ inch knockout in it, so you can easily just pop that thing out of there and install your drive wherever you want it. Now, moving right along to the top of the case where we will find all of our front panel stuff. As you can see here, we've got ourselves a power button and reset button. And the power button's got a nice blue glowing ring around it. Looks pretty cool, I think. Then we move up to our fan controller switch. We have high, silent, and low. Silent, when you have it on silent, it completely shuts your fans off. At least it shuts mine off completely. Right now I have them on low so that they're not too noisy. When you put them on high, they get kind of loud. Moving over here to the left a little bit, we have two USB 2.0 ports. A little further on, we've got two USB 3.0 ports. And then we also have a built-in card reader. We've got a trans flash or micro SD, a regular SD, and then we move over a little bit more and we have our headphone and microphone jacks. The top of the case has some more wire mesh, and this panel is actually removable. You just simply push down on it, you'll hear a click, and it'll pop up and you can lift it out. I've chosen to install two 140 millimeter LED fans. The case comes with one pre-installed, but it also has mounts for two 120 millimeter fans. If you're a water cooler, you can go ahead and mount a 240 millimeter radiator up here if you want. Or if you would rather mount the radiator down inside of the case and have your fans up on the top like I have mine, obviously you can do that too. When it comes to replacing the panel, it's pretty simple. You'll see that there's these three tabs right here on the end. Those simply insert into three holes here on the case. You stick the tabs into the holes and then you just lower the panel back down and you'll push on it until you hear it click and it will lock back into place. As we move around to the back of the case, you'll see that we've got some rubber grommets up here at the top for routing any water cooling tubes or any other cables that you may need to route out the back. We've got our 120 millimeter fan, which comes pre-installed. There's a cutout here for your input-output shield. I obviously have mine already installed there. As we continue moving on down, we have 7 expansion slots for adding graphics cards, sound cards, and whatever else you want to throw in there. And then there's some weird slot over on the right there that I'm not sure what that's for. I am not familiar with that at all. But then as you keep going down, we have the mount for the power supply. And if you go ahead and throw a tape measure on that, you'll see that we have a good 1.75 inches to almost 1 7/8 of space underneath the case, which should provide for some really good airflow from underneath the case. Now let's take you around to the side of the case, which I would call the right side, and I will show you my fantastic cable routing skills, or lack of cable routing skills. As you can see over here, we've got a very nice large cutout in the motherboard tray, which allows really good access for you to be able to install an aftermarket heatsink if you choose to do so. And just down below that cutout, we have a drive sled for a 2.5-inch drive. Most likely you'll want to use this if you're going to be using a solid state drive as your boot disc or something. You simply just remove a screw here and another screw up here. You can pull that sled off, and then you can mount your drive onto it and then screw it back on. And now let's take a look at what we've got in the way of space for cable routing. As you can see, we've got a decent amount of space on the backside of the motherboard tray. If I put a tape measure on it, it shows that we have about 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch, which, you know, it could be better, but it's actually pretty good. It gets the job done. Another one of the cool features on this case is the built-in fan controller. Right here are the 3 leads where you plug in your 3-pin fan connectors onto, and then there is a 4-pin Mulex connector you'll need to hook up to your power supply to get power to those fans. And then, of course, once you have everything all hooked up, you can just flip the switch to whichever setting that you want it to run at, and it will control whichever fans you have hooked up to the controller. Now to talk for a minute about something about this case that I really don't like. I'm not a fan of how far back on the hard drive sleds the hard drives mount. I mean, they mount all the way back up against the right side panel. So as you can see here, when I plug in my SATA power onto the back of my hard drives, to be able to get the right side panel onto the case, I have to bend the wires over completely where they're just completely flat, and the connectors and everything actually touch that right side panel on the inside. I have to like kind of almost force it on to get it to go into place. And it would have been nice if they would have designed those sleds where the drives would mount a little bit further forward on the sleds to allow a little bit of space back behind for you to plug in your power cable and stuff. Moving along to the bottom of the case, we've got some pre-installed dust filters. There's 2 of them, one for your power supply and one for just kind of general ventilation, I guess, into the case. It's a pretty inexpensive filter setup. They're kind of a pain to remove and replace. I would have liked to have had some of those filters on the trays that easily slide in and out, but I guess you get what you pay for, right? Now moving back around to the front of the case, the front panel is completely removable, and as you'll see here, I struggle a little bit trying to get it off. It takes a really good firm tug to get it. You just kind of grab it down at the bottom edge here and then pull pretty hard and it'll come right off. The nice thing about it is, since you don't have any of your front panel connectors on the front panel, you don't have any wires or anything to worry about, so you can just pull it off and get to work installing your 5¼ inch drives. And now to move on to the section I think you've all been waiting for, where we take the grand tour of the interior of the case. Starting out, you can see here that we've got these little raised feet in the case with the little rubber pads on them to help reduce some vibration. And then also they've included this nice Velcro strap to hold your power supply in place, so just in case it gets in a car accident, then it doesn't fly out of its seat and through the windshield. And moving on over here, there's all the different front panel connectors. You know, you got your power switch and whatnot, and then the USB to 2.0 ports, the card reader stuff, and then we move over here, there's your HD audio. Here's the USB 3.0 plug. And now let's move on down to something that none of the other people I saw online had really talked about, is this fan hub. It will accommodate up to 6 fans, and they're all powered off a single 4-pin Mulex connector. Then we move around here to the back of the case where all of our expansion slots are, and then there's that vertical expansion slot, which earlier I said I'm not sure what that's for, but I think I've seen something before where there's some kind of an extension or something off of your PCI Express slot so that you can turn your graphics card sideways so you can display it through your window or something like that. I don't know. I haven't used anything like that before. But moving on up to our CPU cooler, I have a Cooler Master V8 GTS CPU cooler, which I think is like one of the biggest air coolers on the market. And as you can see, it just barely fits inside the case. So the case is plenty big enough for big air coolers. Also, up here at the top of the case, you can see there's quite a bit of headroom still left up there for putting in a radiator. So if you're a water cooler, you should be able to get, an all-in-one water cooler installed in this pretty easily. Or if you've got a custom loop, I believe that'll fit in pretty well. Moving over to our drive cages, there's a single drive cage here at the top, and then there are 2 additional drive cages that will mount 3 hard drives each into them. I went ahead and removed the center of these because I didn't didn't need it and I wanted to make a little more room for airflow and whatnot. So I just installed my hard drives into this bottom cage. Now this case is advertised as being able to accommodate a single 240 millimeter radiator, and I believe that's on the top. Now looking at this, I think if you were to rearrange your drive cages, you could probably even mount one in the front here and then move the fans out onto the front edge, because there's plenty of space between the front edge of the chassis and the front panel. So I believe if you had a setup where you needed two radiators, that this case would fit two 240 millimeter radiators fairly easily. Now you may have noticed that there's something missing from this case that most cases nowadays seem to have on them, and that is toolless mounting hardware for your 5 1/4 inch drives. I'm guessing the reason they chose not to include the toolless mounting hardware is because of how far your 5 1/4 inch drives have to stick out from the front of the chassis in order to line up flush with the front plate of the case. For all the toolless mounting hardware I've ever seen, they utilize the 2 screws on the bottom of your 5 1/4 inch drive. And as you can see here, the only 2 mounting holes that are available are the 2 on the back of the drives. And for that reason, Rosewill had to forego the toolless mounting hardware and go with the old school way of just screwing it into the chassis. The last thing I'd like to talk about this case is the case itself. It's mostly made of metal. The side panels and the chassis itself is all made of metal. It's painted black with a nice matte finish so you don't leave fingerprints all over it. The bezel that goes around the outside and of course the front panel and the top paneling stuff is all made of plastic with the black metal mesh integrated into it. And it's also a matte black finish as well, so you don't have to worry about leaving lots of fingerprints on it. And then there's that big sexy side panel window that gives you a great view of all your sweet gear that you got installed in your rig. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you guys liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, by all means, give it a thumbs down. For those of you out there that are looking to buy this case, I hope this video helped you out, that it was able to answer some of your questions you might have had, or helped you make your decision on whether to buy this thing or not. Anyway, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.